Getting straight into today's stories. The first one we're going to cover is, as you've been hearing in Ray's headlines, new video has emerged which is believed to capture the lead up to the moment a now suspended police officer kicked and stamped on a man at Manchester Airport. The latest video, obtained by Manchester Evening News, has been released as police attempt to pinpoint events leading up to the attack, which has sparked furious protests across Manchester. You can see the scenes there, fairly horrible, aren't they? We saw the original video. We've seen now the follow-up. We were waiting to find out what happened, what more context was. Now we know a little bit more. I'm not sure we still know the whole story. I'm pretty sure we don't. What I want to know this afternoon, though, is we see this on social media. We all, rather than waiting for the facts, have an emotive reaction, don't we? All of us now. And we see stuff on social media without knowing the full story. So what I'm asking now is, are we too quick to react without actually knowing the facts, and we jump to conclusions that can be, let's say, can be dangerous? Nigel, what do you make of this? I mean, it's a horrific story, but the reaction we've had to it has been shocking on many levels.
Yeah, it's been extraordinary on the basis that it seems to have really divided the nation. I mean, some people are on the side of the police officer who's now been suspended, others on the side of the guys who started the whole thing in the first place. You're absolutely right, that nobody should jump to conclusions. There was a small piece of video we saw first off. It looked like that the officer was using disproportionate force, but then you have to see the whole thing in context. Now, we've seen another bit of video, but that's not by any means the end of it. There will be body cams on those officers. There'll be a whole host of material that needs to be gone through. The question will come down to, did that officer who's been suspended use proportionate force to do what he did? The first video would suggest not, but that's only the video suggesting it. We don't know the rest of it.
And it's interesting, you use the phrase sides. It's like you have to pick a side. There are no grey areas. It's either black or white, and you have to pick a side. And that normally entails having a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of what you've seen and the reaction to it?
It's really difficult because, as you say, it is picking a side, and people are expected to come down on one side or another and hold that view despite any other evidence coming forward. And if you take a view that is different to somebody else, then you get accused of all manner of different things, or not taking it seriously, or being a racist, or not being a racist. I mean, it becomes ridiculous that you can't wait for some evidence. Everybody becomes an armchair detective. Everybody becomes an expert in the law. And actually that leads to more problems because there are reporting restrictions around certain events. There are times when, as you both know, you cannot report on something, you cannot mention it, and then people accuse you of ignoring an entire subject. And that's the conversation then leads on to something different. So I think we all need to perhaps calm down a little bit. It is awful. Both video clips are awful, but we don't know how it all links together, and I think we need to actually wait for that information to come to any kind of conclusion.
And there's this implication straight away with pretty much everything these days that racism is involved. I mean, we've seen people outside our Rochdale police station and walking through the streets of Manchester saying sort of like racist police, etc., etc. Where is there evidence of racism?
Well, and that's the whole point. That's why there needs to be a proper investigation. Yeah. And at the moment that investigation has turned into a criminal one, in the event that there would be charges, that the offence would be aggravated if there was a racial element. But all that's a matter for the investigation. Just because somebody is of a different race to somebody else involved in an altercation doesn't mean racism involved. And it also doesn't mean it wasn't involved. But the point is that the right way forward, as Andy Burnham keeps saying, is to have a proper investigation to find out exactly what happened.
It is interesting, because Andy Burnham does talk a lot of sense, I personally think, most of the time. And he came out straight away and said, right, can we just calm down? We don't know the full story. He had seen, I think, more footage than we had when we came out with this statement. But he was saying, let's just calm down. Let's just jump to conclusions all the time.
But unfortunately, that led to people saying, but what do you know and why haven't you shared it and why don't we know about it? Well, we as the general public actually don't have a right to every piece of information that's ongoing. And people need to realise that we don't have an absolute right to whatever the police are looking at, whatever politicians know about something, until such times as it's been put together.
And it would
properly.
prejudice an investigation as well.
Absolutely. And I think we don't understand... The general public, I'm excluding journalists because I'm not one, but I think people need to understand that there are real problems and you can be up against the law for putting stuff on social media. And just because you're an individual with an account doesn't mean that you're any less liable for any action that would continue on into the courts. So I think that we all have a duty just to be a little bit mindful, a little bit careful. But unfortunately, in this day and age, we all just jump straight on.
Again, that's another interesting phrase. This day and age, why do you think we are where is it just social media? Or are we just living in such a divisive political world now?
No, I think that social media is the thing to blame. I mean, largely because I think probably we always did this. We always leapt to conclusions, but we did it privately.
Yeah.
Now what you can do is you can leap on social media and that private opinion suddenly becomes public. And I think Claire's right. People don't realise they're publishing. This is not just a matter of having a chat. You are publishing information and you're going to be held liable for a contempt of court if you get it wrong. But it is social media that means that we know about it. Previously we grumbled in the pub or at home or something like that. Now we can grumble to the entire country.
Yeah, and armchair detectives, we've seen it all before, haven't we? I mean, Jay Slater being the most recent one. I mean, and conspiracy theories, and it's all on there instantly. And you get on a rabbit hole of what everybody thinks has happened. And it can, there are families involved. There are real-life people involved in these stories. Yeah,
and that often is forgotten. And whatever your views on somebody that has gone missing, a young person has gone missing and unfortunately has died, has a family and friends. So whilst everybody is picking over the rights, wrongs, what may have happened, what may not have happened, it is still an individual. So I think you need to be a bit careful. And as Nigel said, we all used to discuss it perhaps with our neighbours over the fence or around the water cooler at work or whatever it was. And it was a conversation that stayed amongst yourselves and we all moved on. But now, unfortunately, you do get sucked down this rabbit hole and it is quite frightening to see the level of information people put out there with no basis whatsoever.
What is interesting about this particular incident in Manchester is it comes a week after, I think, the Leeds incident where we saw the riots in Leeds and we saw police not running away but not bothering to turn up and they just literally let the situation happen. So what do you think we want in this country, Nigel? Is it a police force or a police service?
Well, I think we want a police service. I mean, the important thing is the police can only police with the consent of the public. Every police officer will tell you that. On the basis of that, it's got to be a service. The public have to have confidence and trust in the police. When incidents like this happen, that obviously reduces that trust because we're making our mind up about something that may not be true. But we've suddenly said, oh, that the force used here was disproportionate, and it may not be. But I think that's where the police have to be better than everybody else, that they carry out their duties calmly and relaxed and shouldn't lose their temper.
Yeah, Claire, I mean, but the police force, they have to be a force occasionally. They needed to be that force in Leeds. Do you think there is a reluctance amongst the different police forces around the country to act when there are certain communities involved? In the Leeds case, it was the Roma community.
I think so, and I think that we need to go back to calling them a police force. I think service is a little bit...
But they do serve the public.
Yes, but you can serve the public, but you are the police, you are there to uphold the law.
Yes,
so
they have powers, and they have extra powers to do that.
But what you're suggesting is going around sort of shaking hands, being nice to people,
No,
actually I want my police officers to be out there.
Or as someone said, dancing with rainbows.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I don't think there's a place for that, by the way. I mean, there is a place for the police to actually engage with communities, say at Notting Hill, to prevent any kind of riot or whatever.
Engaging with communities is fine. dancing around and letting things go because it's an event like Pride or the festival. No, you are there to uphold the law, irrespective of what the event is, irrespective of what the community involved is. The law is there to be upheld.
If you're doing your job properly as a police officer, say dancing at a Pride march would not stop you upholding the law. If you see a crime being committed, you get back into your duty as a police officer and go and deal with it.
But do you not think the image of a police officer dancing at Pride and having a police car covered in rainbows is completely contradictory to the fact that they have seemingly run away from the Roma community in Leeds when
they're two different things.
No, it isn't, because it's the perception of the individuals involved. And if people of this country don't believe that the police are there to support them, to look after them, to turn up to a crime, then why
would... That doesn't stop the police engaging with a community or with a group of people if they're behaving themselves. If everyone's having a good time, say a Pride march, say celebrations at Notting Hill.
But you can understand...
it doesn't... I mean, I remember Notting Hill where I had to hide under a dustbin lid as bricks were coming over because of the riots.
But do you not see that trust in police is at an all-time low and things like that really don't help? If see them dancing and then to see them running away on the other hand, it doesn't help the image of.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave it there. We are running out of time. You feel so brilliant. I could listen to you all day, really could. You can invite me around for tea when you feel like it.